Welcome to the Parenting Lab podcast. I'm your parent coach, Brittany, and I am here to guide you into the calm, clarity, and connection you're looking for as you transform your parenting from the inside out. Let's get started. Hey friends, welcome back to the Parenting Lab. I'm always glad that you're here with me. Today we're going to talk about something that's been popping up a lot lately in my social media feed, and that is parenting labels. All right, I know that you've heard these: gentle parenting, conscious parenting, empowered parenting, permissive parenting, free range, helicopter, tiger, even that new one floating around online, FAFO parenting. And if you're like me, you've probably wondered, what the heck kind of parenting is this anyway? Because the names themselves, they bring up big feelings. We hear a label and instantly we're either drawn in and curious or put off and critical. Sometimes we can feel judged or feel judgment for others before any words have been said at all. So today we're going to break this down. What these labels even mean and what they don't mean, why we're so eager to name and categorize the way that we parent, whether you need labels at all, and most importantly, how to hone in on what really matters to you as a parent and how to communicate that to others in a meaningful way. All right, so let's start here. Labels are shortcuts. They're just a way of signaling, this is who I am, this is what I value, and they can be helpful because it feels good to belong, to not feel like we're the only ones parenting in this particular way. But the problem is labels are also limiting. So let's look at the label of gentle parenting. Depending on who you ask, it either means I don't yell and I respect my child as a whole human being, or it means I let my kid get away with everything. But both can't be true at the same time, right? Or let's look at free-range parenting. For some, that means fostering independence, like letting kids play outside unsupervised, teaching responsibility. And for others, it might sound an awful lot like neglect. Even conscious parenting, which is a label that I actually don't mind, can get twisted. People hear it and think, oh, so if you're a conscious parent, then what? Am I an unconscious parent? See how messy it gets? The same label can be worn proudly in one circle and torn apart in another. And I think that's where the confusion and defensiveness comes in, okay? We want the clarity that a label gives us, but we don't want the baggage that it carries with it. So if they're so messy, why is it that we keep reaching for them? Because labels help us feel safe. They help us find our people. If I say I'm a gentle parent, I can hop on TikTok or join a Facebook group and instantly be surrounded by others who get it. It's like when you're traveling and you spot someone wearing your team's colors. Instantly, there's this sense of familiarity and camaraderie with those people. But the downside is sometimes we cling to the label more than the actual values behind it. We get so caught up in what it's called that we forget to ask, but what do I actually believe? What do I want to model for my child? What am I really trying to achieve here? And honestly, sometimes we want the label because it's easier to explain it to others. Oh, I do gentle parenting. End of conversation. No long explanation needed. But here's what I really want you to sit with. If you stripped the labels away, could you still explain your parenting in a way that feels true to you? So here's my hot take. No. We do not need these labels. What we need is clarity, all right? You need to know your values. You need to know your child, and you need to know yourself. Because no parenting label is going to capture the full picture of who you are and what your family needs. And you're going to evolve. Parenting a toddler is not the same thing as parenting a teenager. You might lean more toward structured in one season and more toward flexibility in another. So instead of searching for the right label, the acceptable label, or even the trending label, what if you asked yourself, what kind of relationship do I really want with my child? What skills or values do I want them to carry into their adulthood? And what kind of home environment feels safe and healthy for them and for me? And the answers to those questions, that then becomes your compass. Not whether you fit neatly into gentle or empowered or conscious. All right. Now, to be clear, I do use a lot of labels in my social media posts, hashtag all the things, right? They help me connect with parents who are searching for support. And if I had to choose a label for my own parenting style, the one that probably feels truest is what I would call transformational parenting. It's not a very popular label, but it fits me because being a mom has changed me and still changes me in ways I never could have imagined. I am not the same person I was 21 years ago when my son was born, or 18 years ago when my daughter was born, and I'm still evolving alongside my children. Parenting and the healing work that it's called me into has truly transformed me. And that's what I see in the families I work with too. It's healing in motion. Transformation that touches not just parents, but children and families, even generations. So for me, it's not about being perfect. It's about showing my kids what it looks like to grow and to expand and to really lean into our potential together as a family. And that's really the heart of it. It's not chasing the right label, but asking yourself what feels true, what feels alive, and what actually helps your family grow. So transformational parenting works for me right now, but if we're going to move beyond the labels, the question then becomes, how do I actually figure out what matters most in my parenting? All right. So I like to think of this as building your own parenting compass. It doesn't point you north or south towards some prescribed parenting style. Instead, it's helping you navigate your unique family values so that no matter what the situation is, you can come back to what's important to you. All right. So I'm going to give you a few ways that you can really start to clarify that compass and get to know it really, really deeply so that it becomes part of who you are. So step number one, when you're trying to do this, is really define what your core values are as a parent. When you strip everything else away, the Instagram reels, the parenting books, the pressure from family, what do you want to stand for in your home and your family? Is it respect, independence, emotional connection, resilience? Maybe for you, it's faith or creativity or kindness. It's worth taking time to really sit with this. Write them down. Don't overthink it. Your values don't have to sound polished or profound. They just have to feel true. So think about it this way. If your kids grow up and someone asks them what their childhood home was like, what do you hope they're going to say? Okay, that's probably where your values are hiding. All right, second thing, notice what feels non-negotiable. Every parent has a few things that are absolutely sacred, lines you are not willing to cross. For some, it's we don't use physical punishment. For others, it might be we sit down together for dinner whenever possible. For me, it could be I won't shame my child when they make a mistake. All right. Non-negotiables aren't about being rigid in every area of life. They're really just about having anchors so that when life gets chaotic, you know that these few things will remain steady. The third thing, pay attention to what actually works for your child. Here's the humbling truth. Even if we think we've found the best parenting method, our kids might show us otherwise. Some kids really thrive with lots of structure. Others shut down if they feel too controlled. Some need extra soothing and closeness, and others crave space to try and fail on their own. This is where the flexibility comes in. Instead of saying, I'm a gentle parent, so I never do this, you might find yourself saying, well, with this child, I've noticed that they respond best when I such and such. So let your observations of your child really guide you, more than the rules of any specific parenting style. Fourth, be open to change. One of the sneakiest traps of parenting labels is that they can make us feel like we've got to honor every ideal within that label. But kids grow. Seasons shift. What worked when your child was 3 might not serve them or you when they're 13 or 23. So give yourself permission to evolve. It doesn't mean you were wrong before. It means that you're attentive now. Adaptation is not inconsistency. It's wisdom and responsiveness and resilience. And fifth, I want you to craft a parenting statement. This is one of my favorite steps because it takes all of this abstract thinking and distills it down into something you can actually say out loud. Instead of relying on a label, you create a simple way to describe your parenting to others. Something like, we're really focused on teaching emotional skills and practicing calm communication. Or we value independence, so we give our kids lots of opportunities to try new things on their own, even if it gets messy. So notice how these statements explain choices without boxing you into a category that someone else might misunderstand. They're clear, they're personal, they're rooted in values, and they can grow with you as your kids grow. When you have this compass, your values, your non-negotiables, your observations, your willingness to adapt, and your personal statement, you're much less likely to get lost in the noise of labels. Instead, you're grounded in your own definition of what parenting means for you. So now let's talk about the hard part, communicating this to other people. Because it's one thing to be clear in your own head, and it's another thing entirely to share it with grandparents, teachers, friends, even strangers at the park who have opinions about how you're parenting. So here are some guiding ideas. Lead with values, not with labels. This is a game changer. If I say we do gentle parenting, I have immediately triggered all of the stereotypes that person might have about that label. But if I say we're working on helping our kids learn to regulate their emotions, suddenly the conversation changes. People can connect to values and goals even if they don't share your exact approach. All right? The next thing, keep it short. You don't owe anyone a 30-minute lecture on attachment theory or communication styles in the grocery store checkout line. The simpler you can explain your choices, the less defensive the other person is likely to get. Think of it like an elevator pitch. It's just a few sentences that share your values without opening the door for debate. The third thing, and this is probably the most important, is that you need to anchor it in your child. This is one of the most powerful ways to diffuse tension. So instead of saying, we don't do timeouts in our house, you can say, we've noticed that timeouts don't really work for our child, but what really helps is kind of sitting with them while they're calming down. It shifts the focus away from a grand parenting philosophy and into what's working for your specific child. It's harder to argue with that because it's not theory, it's reality. Because the reality is timeouts might work really well for another family. It doesn't mean that timeouts are necessarily bad. It's just they're not working for you. So you're going to anchor everything in what's working for your child specifically and not the grand theory. So the next one is hold your boundaries kindly but firmly. Sometimes, no matter how well you explain it, people just aren't going to get it. And that's okay. You don't need their approval to raise your child in alignment with your values. You can say, I know this might be different than how you did it, but this is what's working for us. Or I appreciate your concern, but we've got this handled. The trick is to stay grounded, firm but not defensive, because when you're secure in your compass, you don't need anyone else to understand it. Only you know what you're reaching for in your family, and it's only your compass that will guide you there. And here's the deeper truth. Presenting your parenting style to others isn't really about them. It's about you practicing confidence in your values. It's about you saying, I don't need a label to validate my choices. I know who I am as a parent, and that's enough. So, what kind of parenting is this? It's yours. It's the kind that's shaped by your values, your child, your season of life. Labels might help you find community or a really insightful For You page, but they'll never really tell the whole story. And maybe that's the point. Parenting isn't about fitting into a box. It's about building a relationship that feels right for your family. So my invitation to you is this. Take a few minutes, grab a piece of paper, and write down your top 3 parenting values. What matters most to you? That clarity will carry you a lot farther than any label ever could. If you would like some guidance in this process, I am going to put a link in the show notes to my core values worksheet. It's free to download. Just follow that link or visit my website, theparentinglab.org. I want to thank you so much for being with me here today. If this episode had an impact on you, I would appreciate it if you shared it with a friend or left a review. It helps so many more parents find this space of healing and community. I hope you'll join me again next week as we continue to explore the art and science of parenting and put your parenting to the test. Take care, everyone. Thank you for listening to the Parenting Lab podcast. For our complete catalog of online courses, free resources, or to join our mailing list, please visit theparentinglab.org. See you next time.